There is a strange business in the world, one that quietly generates billions every year. But unlike most businesses, its most valuable resource isn't oil, technology, or labor. It's ignorance, not the kind people are ashamed of, the kind they don't even know they have. Because every day, millions of people wake up, work hard, earn money, and unknowingly feed an entire economy built on what they don't understand. An economy where confusion is profitable, complexity is intentional, and the less people know about the system, the better the system works. In fact, if everyone suddenly understood how many industries actually operate, some of the most profitable businesses in the world would collapse overnight. Because in the modern economy, ignorance isn't just common, it's monetized. Most people believe wealth is created by working harder, investing smarter, or discovering the right opportunity at the right time. But there's another reality most people never see, an invisible economy operating quietly in the background, an economy built on a single resource: ignorance. Because in most markets, money doesn't move randomly. It moves in a very predictable direction, from the uninformed to the informed. The people who understand the system almost always end up taking money from those who don't. And the strange part is, this isn't considered corruption, it's considered business. One investor once explained it bluntly: the knowledge gap between the rich and the poor isn't just large, it's hidden. Because the system often works best when people believe they understand what they're doing, even when they don't. Think about it. Millions of people buy financial products they barely understand, invest in companies they've never researched, follow trends they heard about yesterday, and each time they do, someone else on the other side of the trade already knows more. That's the real advantage in the modern economy. Not money, not connections, information. Because the moment people truly understand how the system works, many profitable businesses would stop working. And that raises a disturbing question. If ignorance stopped being profitable tomorrow, how many industries would survive? Let's start with money, because nowhere is the business of ignorance more profitable than in finance. Every year, millions of people enter the markets with the same hope: turn savings into wealth, multiply what they worked years to earn, and on the surface, the system appears fair. Open an account, buy an asset, watch it grow. But beneath that simple promise lies a far more uncomfortable truth. Many financial systems quietly rely on one thing: people not fully understanding what they are buying. Because the modern market moves faster than most people realize. Long before the public hears about an opportunity, someone already knows. An investor makes a quiet move. A company secures funding. A new technology begins attracting serious capital. But none of that appears in the headlines yet. Then something interesting happens. Weeks later, the story breaks. News articles appear. Social media explodes with excitement. Suddenly, thousands of people rush in. They believe they discovered the opportunity, but in reality, they arrived at the end of it. Because by the time the public hears about an investment, the real players have already positioned themselves. And in many cases, they are preparing to exit. This is why markets often behave in a strange pattern. Excitement rises, the public piles in, prices surge, and quietly, those who entered early begin selling. Not because the opportunity was fake, but because they understood something others didn't: timing. In finance, knowledge doesn't just create advantage, it creates distance. Distance between those who move first and those who move last. And the people who move last often believe they are the ones discovering the opportunity, but they aren't discovering it, they are completing it. Because in many markets, the final stage of an opportunity isn't growth, it's distribution. And the public becomes the buyer of last resort. Now consider something Americans have trusted for generations: real estate. For decades, the advice has sounded simple: buy property, hold it, watch it grow. It's the foundation of the American wealth story. Parents tell their kids to buy land, Financial gurus repeat the same message. Entire suburbs are built on the promise that property always goes up. But what most people never see is how that opportunity is actually created. Imagine this. A developer quietly buys hundreds of acres of land on the edge of a growing city. At the time, the land looks ordinary. Empty fields, dirt roads, nothing special. But the developer knows something most buyers don't. A new highway is being planned. A shopping center is coming. Population is expanding in that direction. So they buy the land early. Cheap. Years pass. Then the marketing begins. Billboards appear. Invest in the fastest growing area in America. Own land before prices explode. Suddenly the land is divided into small plots. Flexible payment plans, 24 months, 36 months, low monthly payments. To many buyers, it feels like opportunity, but to the developer, it's inventory. Because by the time the public hears about the investment, the real investment already happened, years earlier. When the land was still quiet, when nobody was paying attention, and that's the illusion. Buyers believe they are becoming investors. But in many cases, they are simply the final customers in someone else's investment. The real investors didn't buy the land last month. They bought it years ago, in bulk, before anyone else even knew it was valuable. Because in the business of opportunity, timing is everything, and the people selling opportunity usually bought it long before you heard about it. Now imagine two people entering the same market. Both want to invest. Both believe they have access to the same opportunities. Both have the same goal, make money. But the reality is very different. One investor is sitting in a glass office overlooking Manhattan, surrounded by analysts, data screens, market research reports. They have access to tools that cost tens of thousands of dollars a year, real-time market intelligence, institutional research, economic forecasts from entire teams of specialists. Their job is simple: understand what the market will do before everyone else does. Now imagine the second investor. They are sitting at home, scrolling through headlines on a smartphone, watching a few videos, checking a free trading app. Both investors believe they are making informed decisions, but they are not playing the same game. Because in modern markets, information isn't evenly distributed. It's stratified. The wealthiest investors rarely rely on news headlines. By the time something appears on the news, they already know. They pay for private research, industry reports, direct access to corporate leadership. Meanwhile, the average person is trying to make the same financial decisions using fragments of information, a trending article, a viral post, a recommendation from someone online. And when the results are different, people call it luck. But it isn't luck, it's information. Because markets reward one thing above almost everything else: knowing something before everyone else does. And the larger the information gap becomes, the more profitable ignorance becomes on the other side. But the business of ignorance goes far beyond finance. Entire social ecosystems can reinforce it. Think about it. Where you grow up often determines what conversations you hear, what ambitions feel realistic, what opportunities you even know exist. Children raised around business deals, negotiations, and investments grow up thinking differently. They hear numbers, strategies, opportunities. Meanwhile, others grow up hearing only survival conversations, bills, daily struggles, entertainment, and slowly two different realities form. The rich and the poor may live on the same planet, but they often live in completely different worlds. Today, ignorance has become even more profitable because in the age of social media, attention is money, and emotional reactions are easier to monetize than deep understanding. People can be so overwhelmed by noise that they stop paying attention altogether. And when people stop paying attention, they become easier to influence. One observer said something interesting. He said in places where there is the most lack, people don't offer attention. They offer reaction. And reaction is the easiest thing to manipulate. So how do you escape a system that profits from ignorance? The first step is realizing something most people never question. The system isn't designed to make everyone informed. In fact, in many industries, confusion is profitable. The more complex something appears, the easier it becomes to sell. That's why contracts are filled with fine print, why financial products sound complicated, why important information is often buried under thousands of pages most people will never read. Because when people don't fully understand something, they tend to trust the person explaining it, and trust can be extremely profitable. But the people who consistently stay ahead in the system often develop a habit that most others avoid. They study what others ignore. They read financial reports, corporate filings, market histories, biographies of people who built industries, not because those things are exciting, but because inside them are patterns. Patterns about how money moves, how markets behave, how power operates. And once you begin to see those patterns, the system starts to look very different. Opportunities become clearer. Risks become more obvious, and the traps that once looked like opportunity become easier to recognize. Because the real advantage in the modern economy isn't intelligence. It isn't luck. It's understanding. Understanding how systems work. Understanding how incentives shape behavior. Understanding who benefits and why. And once you understand that, you stop becoming easy money. Because in the end, the world is full of opportunities, but it's also full of traps. And the difference between the two often comes down to one thing: knowledge. Because as long as ignorance exists, someone will build a business around it. The real question is, will you remain the customer or become the one who understands the game?